Hi, in this video we're going to talk about the classification of organisms. This is the lecture that I wasn't here the Friday right before spring break, so take a look at this. It's pretty easy, you just have to watch the video. So this is classification of organisms. There are many ways that human beings have been trying to classify the different organisms out there for a long time, and we've come a long way since we first started thousands of years ago, probably longer than that. But during the classification of organisms nowadays, we use something called scientific names. Scientific names are important because, for example, these three, cougar, puma, and mountain lions, they're all the same thing, right? They have the different common names, but really we're talking about the same type of organism, the same species. So the scientific names allow us to just use one language to identify the different species, and for science it makes things a lot clearer. And scientific name is structured as such. It's called binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature, bi means two, so this name for organisms have two parts. The first part of the binomial nomenclature is the genus of this organism, and then the second part is the species. So genus is a much larger category compared to the species. It's one step above. So species is the lowest category that we can have for an organism, and genus is one step above. Okay, so if you can remember, there are different ways that we know that Homo sapiens are us the human beings, right? But in the past, millions of years ago, there were other types of Homo, other species. So all the Homos are the same genus, but they were different species of human. So this is binomial nomenclature. It's a two-part scientific name used universally. The first part is the genus. It's a larger category, and species is a smaller category. It's more narrow. Okay. So genus is a group of similar species. Now here's a word that you may or may not have seen before. It's called taxa. So taxa is basically the organization of living things that we give them where they naturally have, but it's a way that we can organize things. So Linnaeus is a scientist that kind of put together this species, genus, all this concept, and he organized the different organisms in 7 steps. We have species, which is the smallest category. We have genus, which are similar species. They're more closely related to each other. Then the next one is family, order, class, phylum, and kingdom. I'm sure you've learned it multiple times before, but I would say you don't really have to memorize it. But if I were to give you a picture like this, you should be able to tell which category is the smallest and which one is the largest, right? The species is the smallest category, and the kingdom is the largest category that involves all the living organisms. So the binomial nomenclature, what am I saying? The Linnaeus 7 taxa arrangement, the hierarchical arrangement, is done based on the similarities and differences anatomically, meaning that he look at the species, or he look at the different organisms and kind of group them together, depending on how similar they look to each other. You can remember it if you want to as King Philip come over for grape soda. King Philip come over for grape soda. All right, so this is practice. In which group of organisms are the members most closely associated? All the organisms in the same kingdom, or all the organisms in the same order? So if you can remember that kingdom is the largest category, order has to contain organisms that are more closely related to each other. Now, we have the modern days has a new classification system that's improved a little bit from Linnaeus' days. So since the 1700s, there are many changes, but right now we use the 3-domain system based on DNA analysis. So what we find out is that there's 3 biggest categories that we can have, biggest domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukarya, as we've learned. Bacteria and archaea are both prokaryotes, but actually archaea and eukarya are more closely related to each other compared to bacteria. So bacteria is its own category. And archaea and eukarya came from the same common ancestor. And obviously, all of the living organisms have the same common ancestor, but archaea and eukarya share a more recent common ancestor, meaning archaea and eukarya are actually more closely related to each other compared to bacteria, to archaea. So it kind of goes like this. Archaea, eukarya has a more recent common ancestor, and here's bacteria. That's it.